The broken black umbrella devoured a spear of fire that should have burned through my chest. Its torn canopy pulled the flames inward with a sound like a giant taking one sharp breath. The metal ribs snapped shut. The fire vanished. A heartbeat later, heat drove through my right arm and buried itself behind my ribs. I dropped to one knee in the academy arena. Across from me, Lyra Voss stared at her empty hand. She was the undefeated first-year champion, the pride of the Ember Hall, and the owner of enough mana to light a small town. I had 8 units of mana, not 800, 8. "Stay down," she warned. "That spear was only half strength." The umbrella kicked its hooked handle against my wrist. I had owned it for less than 3 hours, but I already knew what that impatient tap meant. Open me. That was a terrible idea. The thing had 0 attack, 6 holes, and the manners of an angry crow. It was also the only reason I still had eyebrows. Lyra formed a second flame above her palm. I pointed the folded umbrella at her and pressed the crooked runner. The canopy burst open. Black cloth stretched between silver ribs, and the stolen fire came roaring back. It was still Lyra's fire. I felt her sharp, controlled heat in it. But the flames raced along the black seams, curled around the broken tips, and took the shape of an enormous dragon with ragged wings. The dragon crossed the arena in one breath. Lyra threw up a wall of fire. Her own attack struck it, split around her, and melted a glowing trench through the stone behind her. The barrier bells screamed. Every ranking crystal around the arena changed at once. The letter beside my umbrella jumped from F to A. That was the moment everyone remembered. I remembered the morning that had put the umbrella in my hand. 3 hours earlier, I had been standing in the familiar hall while someone else took my future. "The Academy has corrected an inefficient assignment," Instructor Brand said. He spoke with the calm voice adults used when they had already decided your anger did not count. Behind him, a brass brazier held my combat salamander, Cinder. She was as long as my forearm, bright red, and clever enough to steal sausage from a locked box. For 6 months, I had fed her, trained her, and slept beside her furnace when she was ill. Now she sat on Cassian Vey's shoulder. Cassian was the son of the Academy's largest sponsor. He had 400 mana units, perfect silver hair, and an expression that suggested the world had been arranged correctly at last. "Cinder's growth is wasted on a student with 8 mana," Brand continued. "She has accepted a superior contract." Cinder would not look at me. That hurt more than I expected. Then I noticed Cassian's thumb pressed against the command seal beneath her jaw. Her tail was rigid. She had not accepted anything freely. "Remove the seal," I said. Brand's eyes narrowed. "You are in no position to make demands, Rowan Vale." My name in this world was Rowan. In my last world, it had been different. I had lived 17 ordinary years, stepped outside during a hurricane, and been killed by a black umbrella torn from someone's hand. I remembered the spinning metal tip. I remembered thinking that dying to an umbrella was the sort of joke no one would believe. Then I had awakened here, as the least gifted student in Skyreach Academy. I had promised myself that my second life would not be spent waiting for powerful people to decide who was worth saving. I wanted to join the Sky Rescue Corps. They flew into broken towers, monster storms, and collapsing gates. They brought people home, even when those people had low ranks and empty pockets. Skyreach admitted students to the rescue course only if they had a bonded familiar. Cinder had been my chance. Brand pointed toward a bin near the furnace door. A replacement has been provided. The Academy has fulfilled its duty. Inside the bin lay the umbrella. It was black, narrow, and old. 6 small holes dotted its cloth. One silver rib poked through the edge like a broken finger. The wooden handle curved into a hook polished by hands that had vanished long ago. A paper tag hung from it. 0 attack, F rank, defective canopy. Cassian gave me an uncomfortable look. He was not stupid, which made him harder to hate. "You cannot power Cinder's adult form," he said. "With me, she can enter the Eastern Tournament. This helps the Academy." "Then ask her," I said. His jaw tightened. The umbrella rolled over in the bin and pointed its handle at him. No wind blew in the hall. Everyone went quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Then Bran laughed. "A loose floorboard," he said. The umbrella rolled again and struck the side of the bin 3 times. Clack, clack, clack. It sounded rude. I reached down. The umbrella jerked away from my fingers. I tried again, slower. "I am not going to throw you out," I whispered. It stopped moving. The moment my hand closed around the wooden hook, cold ran up my arm. A system voice spoke inside my head. The object had no registered species. Its attack remained 0. Its condition was listed as insultingly poor. Beneath those facts, 3 sealed paths appeared for less than a blink. Keeper of the Sky, Devourer of Calamities, Lord of the Reversed Storm. Then the words vanished. Bran shoved a bond form toward me. "Sign or leave the familiar program." I signed. The umbrella immediately shook a cloud of dust onto his shoes. That was how I learned it held grudges. I took it to an unused practice room beneath the western stairs. If it was alive, it did not speak. It waddled when I set it down, dragging its ferrule across the floor. It disliked being placed hook down. It preferred to lean against my right leg, where it could trip me if I ignored it. I began with observation. It had moved without wind. It had aimed itself at Cassian. When I faced it toward a practice dummy, nothing happened. When I tried to open it, the runner stuck halfway and the canopy sagged like a tired bat. "0 attack," I said. "Fine, maybe you are defense." The hooked handle tapped my ankle once. I found a training wand that fired a breeze strong enough to knock paper from a desk. I placed the umbrella upright, opened it fully with both hands, and aimed the bowl of its canopy toward the wand. For the first test, I let the wand fire beside it. The breeze crossed the room. The umbrella did not react. For the second, I aimed directly at its center. The breeze struck. The black cloth pulled inward. The umbrella snapped shut so hard that the hook caught my sleeve. The room became still. A cold pressure filled the closed canopy. At the same moment, a dull ache spread across my chest, as if the breeze had passed through the umbrella and left its impact inside me. Observation became hypothesis. It did not block wind. It swallowed an attack aimed into its open canopy. I pointed the closed umbrella at the dummy and pressed the runner. It opened. The breeze exploded from the black cloth and knocked the straw dummy over. The ache vanished. "You kept it," I breathed. The umbrella spun once on its tip. It looked pleased with itself. I tried a third test. I fired the wand at the open canopy again, then had a second wand shoot from the side before I released the first breeze. The umbrella swallowed the attack from the front and snapped shut. The second breeze struck the folded cloth and sent it skidding across the floor. It could hold one attack. Only one. It had to be fully open and facing the source. Anything from another direction remained dangerous. While it stored the attack, I shared some of the pain. That was a clear rule. Clear rules kept people alive. I tested the word attack next. Falling water passed through the holes. A rolling ball bounced off the cloth. A chalk pellet thrown lazily also bounced away. When I asked a practice construct to strike me with the same pellet, the umbrella snapped toward it and swallowed the shot. Intent mattered. Direction mattered. The thing did not eat accidents. It also had preferences. A blunt force dart made the handle wiggle with interest. A harmless breeze earned one bored tap. When I aimed the wand at myself, the canopy moved before I did. When I ordered the construct to aim at the umbrella instead, Gloom stayed folded and let the pellet bounce from its ferrule. It was willing to protect me, but it did not consider itself helpless. For my final safe test, I stored a breeze and set the umbrella beside the door. I wanted to learn whether distance from my hand mattered. The ache remained in my chest. The umbrella would not open until I picked it up. But the moment my fingers touched the hook, I felt exactly where its canopy wished to face. That discovery changed my plan. I could not leave it open as a trap or command it from across a room. We had to stand in the same danger. A shield protected someone from a distance. Gloom demanded a partner. I was writing that down when the Western warning bell rang. The old practice guardian in the corridor had awakened with a cracked control rune. It was a bronze statue built to test shields. Now it was firing narrow bolts of force at every moving student. 3 younger pupils crouched behind a bench. The bench was losing pieces. I could have run for an instructor. By the time one arrived, the guardian would have a clean angle. I opened the umbrella. It twisted in my grip. "The bolts are attacks," I said. "One at a time. We can do this." The handle struck my wrist twice. No, the guardian fired. I forced the canopy in front of me. The bolt vanished into the black cloth, and the umbrella snapped shut. Pain punched through my shoulder. It was stronger than the breeze by a ridiculous amount. The guardian's head rotated toward the children. I had one stored shot and no shield. At first I aimed at the statue's chest. Then I noticed the umbrella pulling left. It wanted the ceiling. Why? The hook tugged again. Above the guardian hung the iron sign for the western wing. One chain had already broken. The remaining chain was directly behind the statue's cracked control rune. Observation. Hypothesis. Dangerous application. I ran sideways. The guardian tracked me, turning its back on the children. My shoulder burned with every step. When the chain, the cracked rune, and my umbrella lined up, the handle went still. "Your choice," I told it. The umbrella opened. The stored bolt shot upward, broke the chain, and dropped the heavy sign against the guardian's back. Bronze slammed into stone. The cracked rune shattered. The statue froze with one hand raised. The 3 children stared at me. The umbrella shook dust from its cloth and leaned against my leg as if it had done nothing unusual. Instructor Bran arrived late enough to be safe and early enough to take credit. His gaze moved from the disabled guardian to the umbrella. "The ranking assessment begins in 1 hour," he said. "You will attend." I understood the trap. If the umbrella failed in public, he could remove me from the program. If it succeeded, the academy could claim the result. I attended anyway. The rescue course was still my goal, and hiding would not return Cinder. That brought me to the arena and Lyra Voss. She had not mocked me. That was almost worse. She had looked at the torn umbrella, looked at my 8 mana, and asked Bran if the match was safe. Bran assured her that the barriers would stop her fire. He did not mention that the barrier behind me had been disabled for repairs. Lyra's first fire spear crossed the arena. The umbrella swallowed it. I felt its heat. When Lyra began forming the second, the umbrella demanded to open. I trusted its timing. The returned fire became the Black Dragon, not because the umbrella created more flame, but because it gave the stored attack a path along every rib and torn seam. Lyra's spear had entered as a straight line. It left following the shape the umbrella remembered. The result melted a trench and changed the ranking crystals from F to A. No one cheered. A useful reaction was already taking shape behind their eyes. Bran wanted ownership. Cassian wanted to know whether the umbrella could be transferred. Lyra wanted to understand why her flame had obeyed a piece of broken cloth. The headmaster ordered the arena sealed for inspection. The umbrella cared about none of them. It folded itself, hooked my belt, and refused to let Bran touch it. "Academy property," Bran said. The hook tightened. I thought of Cinder's rigid tail beneath Cassian's command seal. I could have protected my place by surrendering the umbrella for testing. Instead, I tore the bond form from Bran's hand and wrote a single line beneath my signature. No transfer without the familiar's consent. "It is an object," Bran snapped. "Then it cannot be Academy property and a bonded familiar at the same time," I said. "Choose which rule you want to break in public." Lyra's mouth moved at one corner. It might have been the beginning of a smile. The umbrella released my belt. Its handle settled into my palm. The system voice returned. The first sealed path opened because neither of us had chosen ownership. We had chosen each other. Keeper of the sky. Nothing in my mana changed. I still had 8 units. The umbrella still had holes. But I felt the direction of its attention like a faint pull in my wrist. It was watching the high windows. That night, I woke to the sound of cloth stretching. The umbrella stood open beside my bed. Moonlight filled its black canopy. The holes no longer looked random. They formed towers, bridges, and a round palace hanging upside down in the sky. Then something bright fell from the moon. The umbrella turned toward the window before I saw it. Its ribs trembled. It did not look hungry. It looked afraid. The falling light became a silver needle aimed directly at the academy. The umbrella leaped into my hand and opened wider. The silver needle struck the open canopy without making a sound. The umbrella snapped shut. Cold pierced my arm. It was nothing like Lyra's fire. The pain was thin, bright, and deep, as if moonlight had found the spaces between my bones. I nearly dropped the handle. Outside my dormitory window, the sky was empty again. "You could have warned me," I whispered. The umbrella knocked its hook against my bed frame. One tap, then another. Slower this time. Sorry, perhaps. It remained folded. The silver attack was still inside, and the cold did not fade. My first rule had gained an unpleasant detail. A stored attack did not grow weaker with time, neither did the pain it shared with me. I carried the umbrella to the roof, pointed it toward an empty practice field, and tried to open it. It locked its runner. "We cannot keep this until breakfast." The hook pulled toward the moon. "You want to return it?" The umbrella tapped once. I aimed at the moon. The runner loosened. Before I pressed it, clouds moved across the sky and the umbrella twisted away. It pointed instead at the old observatory tower on the academy's northern wall. A patch of roof there had been burned black. Not tonight. Long ago. The umbrella wanted me to see it. I changed my aim toward a stone target beyond the field. The canopy opened with obvious reluctance. A silver line flashed out. It pierced the target and left a white circle rimmed with frost. The pain vanished. The umbrella shook itself like a wet bird, closed, and dragged me back toward the dormitory. At breakfast, Headmaster Soren announced that a private relic inspector would arrive within 2 days. Until then, I was forbidden to remove the umbrella from academy grounds. I was also required to earn a field safety seal if I wanted to remain in the rescue track. "The Skybridge trial begins at noon," Instructor Brand said. "No seal, no course." He sounded pleased. The trial required students to cross the abandoned supply bridge west of the academy, disable 3 hostile practice drones, and recover a brass marker. The bridge hung over a ravine where wind mantas nested. It was supposed to test calm movement under pressure. This year, someone had forgotten to remove the mantas. I needed the seal. More than that, I needed to understand what my umbrella would do away from an arena. I borrowed 2 weak training wands and went to the orchard for one last safe test. The umbrella leaned against an apple tree and pretended not to care. I opened it toward the first wand. The breeze struck, vanished, and closed the canopy. The familiar ache settled in my chest. Then I walked around the tree, turned 90 degrees, and opened the umbrella toward a hanging bucket. The stored breeze hit the bucket from my new direction. That seemed obvious after I saw it, but it changed everything. The umbrella remembered the attack, not its original destination. We could carry one shot, move, and choose a new line before release. I tested the limit. I stored another breeze and waited 10 minutes. The ache pulsed with every heartbeat. When I opened the umbrella, the breeze remained as strong as before. "Useful," I said. The umbrella hooked an apple from a low branch and dropped it onto my head. Painful and useful, both can be true. It stole another apple. That was when Mira Sen found me. She was small, quiet, and almost always surrounded by the clean scent of mint. A pale green healer's cord was tied around her wrist. Most students ignored her because she spoke softly and never fought for attention. They forgot that she could identify a poisoned nerve by watching someone walk across a room. She looked at me once and said, Your right hand is shaking in time with something that is not your pulse. Good morning to you too. Mira touched 2 fingers to my wrist. Warmth spread beneath my skin. The ache from the stored breeze softened, but it did not disappear. The umbrella rolled its handle toward her. It likes you, I said. No, Mira replied. It is checking whether I hurt you. She increased the healing warmth. The umbrella hooked her sleeve and pulled her hand away. Mira's eyes widened. Then she smiled. It thinks I use too much. She was right. The pain was part of the bond, and the umbrella did not want it hidden so completely that I forgot what it carried. Mira tried again with a gentler current. This time the hook rested beside her fingers. She noticed its personality before she asked about its rank. That mattered to me. Mira was joining the Skybridge trial for her own reason. A gray moss called starlace grew beneath the bridge. It was used to treat moonscorch, a rare illness that left silver lines under the skin and woke its victims whenever the moon was full. Her younger brother had suffered from it since a light fell near their village 3 years earlier. The Academy says the illness is a rumor, she said. Rumors do not scream at night. The umbrella stopped stealing apples. Its tip pointed at the silver scar on Mira's healer cord. We entered the trial together. Cassian and Cinder started 5 minutes before us. Cinder wore a gold command collar now. She moved quickly, but her flames were pale. Cassian had the power to force her adult form, and not the patience to notice she was exhausted. I kept my eyes on the bridge. The structure was a narrow path of wood and iron stretching through white mist. 3 drones circled above it. Each fired blunt force darts when a student crossed a red boundary rune. The official plan was simple: shield, advance, disable. I had no shield. I had an umbrella that could eat 1 dart and complain about the flavor. The first drone fired directly at me. I opened the canopy. The dart vanished, the cloth snapped shut, and pressure struck my ribs. I ran beneath the drone before opening again. The returned dart hit the drone's lower hinge. It spun away and crashed into a safety net. The umbrella spun its hook around my wrist, pleased. The second drone stayed behind us and fired down the length of the bridge. I faced it, swallowed the dart, then turned toward the third drone ahead. When I opened the umbrella, the second drone's attack disabled the third. Carry, turn, release. 1 rule, a new use. The second drone remained active behind us. I could have stored its next dart, but a flock of young wind mantas burst from beneath the bridge. They looked like silver blankets with wings. The drone's targeting rune mistook them for trial hazards. It fired at the smallest one. The umbrella tore itself from my grip. It opened in the middle of the bridge. The dart vanished into its canopy. The familiar snapped shut and slid toward the edge. I caught the hook with 2 fingers. The stored impact slammed pain into my hand. The baby manta flapped into the mist. Meanwhile, the drone rotated toward us again. That shot was not aimed at me, I said. We needed it for the trial. The umbrella struck my knuckles. Mira crouched beside it. It did need the shot, just not for the same reason. The second drone fired. With the umbrella already full, the dart hit my shoulder and knocked me against the railing. Mira grabbed my coat. The umbrella hooked my belt from the other side. For 1 strange second, both of them hung over the ravine with me. We pulled ourselves back. I was angry. The pain made it easy. If you choose every target, what am I here for? I demanded. The umbrella released the stored dart into the wooden planks between us. The impact broke 1 plank. Beneath it, caught between iron supports, was the baby manta, a strand of wire from an illegal poacher's trap wrapped around its wing. The umbrella had not wasted the shot. It had chosen the only angle that opened a way to the trapped creature. Mira lay flat and cut the wire with a healer's knife. The manta trembled against her hands. A silver burn marked its wing, identical to the scar on her cord. "Moonscorch," she whispered. The trial no longer mattered as much as it had 10 seconds earlier. We climbed under the bridge using maintenance rungs. The umbrella hated being closed near open sky. It kept trying to open and almost pulled me off twice. Mira gathered star lace while I traced the wire traps. They were not ordinary poacher tools. Each was tied to a narrow shard of white metal. The shards pointed upward, as if they were waiting for something to fall. The umbrella stabbed one with its ferrule. The metal rang. In my head, the keeper of the sky path stirred. I felt direction through the handle. Every shard was aimed at the Academy Observatory, not at the mantas, through them. "These are markers," I said. "Someone is turning the whole bridge into a target." A deeper hum passed through the supports. The third practice drone had not crashed. It had tangled in the cables below us, and the white shards were feeding moon-cold energy into its cracked core. Its training darts brightened from blue to silver. One drone was manageable. A drone firing in every direction was not. It released a spinning ring of force. The umbrella opened toward one edge of the ring and did nothing. The attack spread outward from the drone in all directions. It was not aimed along one line. The black cloth could not swallow a storm simply because I wanted it to. The ring struck the bridge. Cables snapped. Planks tilted into the ravine. Mira anchored a green healing thread around my waist. It could not carry my weight for long, but it kept me from falling while I searched for a line. "We need to make it aim," I said. "At what?" "At me." I climbed onto the one section of bridge still marked by an active trial rune. The drone's old instructions fought the moon metal signal. Its ring attack failed to form. Its central lens fixed on my chest instead. The umbrella tried to pull me backward. "I know," I told it. "This hurts, but if the drone keeps spraying force, the bridge comes down with everyone on it. One clean attack, then you can eat." The handle trembled. The drone compressed the entire silver charge into a single dart aimed at me. The umbrella opened. It devoured the dart. The canopy closed. Pain burst across my chest, cold and heavy enough to blur the ravine. Mira put one hand between my shoulders. She did not erase the pain. She steadied my breath around it. "Where do we return it?" she asked. I looked at the broken cables, the moon shards, and the brass trial marker hanging on a chain above the far platform. The umbrella pulled toward the main support pin. I understood. Destroying the drone would leave the corrupted shards in place. Breaking the support pin would drop the entire trapped section into the safety net below, where instructors could recover it. It would also end the trial without our marker. "There goes my seal," I said. The umbrella tapped my wrist once. Mira's voice stayed soft. "A rescue student should probably rescue the bridge." I opened the canopy toward the pin. The stored silver dart flashed out. It broke the pin cleanly. The corrupted bridge section folded downward into the Academy's lower safety net, carrying the drone and every white shard with it. The remaining cables stopped screaming. Students on both platforms were safe. We returned without the brass marker. Instructor Brand failed us before my boots touched stone. Headmaster Soren overruled him after Mira placed the moon shards on the inspection table. A failed trial could be repeated. A hidden targeting array beneath Academy grounds could not be ignored. We received provisional safety seals and an order not to speak about the silver metal. The seal mattered less than I had expected. On the return path, 2 younger students from the Western Corridor asked whether the rescue course accepted low-rank familiars. One carried a moth that could only glow when frightened. The other had a clay crab missing a leg. I told them the official answer was probably no. Then I told them I intended to change it. Gloom opened one panel above the clay crab while rain dripped from the bridge. Water passed through the holes and soaked all 3 of us. The crab clicked its claw at Gloom. Gloom clicked its runner back. It was the first time I saw what my personal goal could become. Not merely entering the rescue corps, but making room for partners the ranking crystals misunderstood. Cassian received a perfect score. When Cinder passed me, she dropped something from her mouth into my hand, half of the sausage I had packed for her that morning. I did not ask her to come back, not while the command collar remained. That evening, Mira treated my shoulder in the infirmary. The umbrella lay across my knees. Whenever her fingers approached a painful place, its tip pointed to the exact spot. Whenever she pressed too hard, it pinched her sleeve. "Bossy," Mira murmured. The umbrella tilted proudly. "It likes being useful," she said, "not being used." The difference stayed with me. Someone knocked once on the infirmary door and entered without waiting. The man wore a gray traveling coat fastened with a silver clasp shaped like a closed eye. He carried a narrow case of tools. None of them looked designed to repair cloth. Headmaster Soren followed him with 2 academy guards. "Rowan Vale," the stranger said. "I am Master Oren Kale of the Concordat of Relics. Your familiar released a signature recorded only twice in the last century." The umbrella slid off my knees and hid behind my boots. Oren watched the movement with professional interest, not surprise. "I have authority to purchase, seal, or dismantle unclassified relics," he continued. "Cooperation will be rewarded. Resistance will make the examination less comfortable." Mira stood between his tool case and the umbrella. "It understands you," she said. "That," Oren replied, "is what concerns me." Above us, the moon appeared in the infirmary window. The umbrella opened by itself. Far beyond the glass, 3 more silver needles began to fall. Manhwaka TTS Novel, Episode 3. Master Oren saw the falling lights and moved faster than any scholar had a right to move. He snapped a glass frame open around the umbrella. Clear walls rose from the floor and locked above it. The familiar struck the inside with its hooked handle. It could not spread its canopy. "Release it," I said. "If it opens, it draws the attack," Oren replied. The 3 needles changed direction. They had been falling toward different academy towers. Now all 3 curved toward the infirmary. Oren's expression hardened. "As I believed, it is a beacon." The umbrella hammered the glass. I felt its fear through the bond. It had seen the needles and moved to protect us. Being followed was not the same as inviting the chase. "Open the ceiling shutters," I told Mira. She ran to the wall wheel. Oren caught my shoulder. 3 attacks, he said. "Your relic holds one. Even if your story is accurate, the limit kills you. Then help me make them 1. He glanced at the falling lights, calculating. That was the first reason I did not decide he was a monster. He wanted control, but he wanted the students alive more. "The northern and southern needles will enter the academy barrier first," he said. "The barrier will bend them toward the central ward. The 3rd is already central. You would have half a second when their paths overlap." The glass cage had a lock on each side. I yanked at the first. Oren did not stop me. He opened the second himself. Mira turned the wheel. The roof shutters folded apart, revealing the moon and 3 white lines. The umbrella sprang from the cage into my hand. I did not open it yet. Separate silver needles passed through the outer barrier. Blue light bent their paths. For a breath, all 3 traveled along one line toward the infirmary roof. "Now," Oren said. The umbrella opened. The combined strike vanished into the black canopy. It snapped shut. 3 points of cold became 1 blade of pain driven through my shoulder. I stayed standing because Mira locked both hands around my arm. "Return it away from the academy," she said. I aimed at the empty western sky. The umbrella refused to open. It pointed toward the moon. "Not now," I said. "We do not know what is up there." The handle pulled harder. Oren drew a silver band from his coat. "It is resisting its bearer while holding a hostile charge. That is sufficient evidence for emergency sealing." The familiar hissed. An umbrella should not have been able to hiss. Gloom found a way. That was the name I had started using in my head, because calling it the umbrella during an argument felt unfair. 1 minute, I told Oren. I carried Gloom to the window. The old observatory rose beyond the academy wall. Its blackened roof faced the moon. I aimed above it, along the path Gloom wanted, but not directly at the pale circle. "Compromise," I whispered. The runner loosened, Gloom opened. The 3 combined needles shot upward as one silver beam. It passed above the observatory, struck something invisible, and outlined a vast circular seal spread across the sky. For 1 second, everyone in the infirmary saw chains of light stretching from the academy to the moon. Then the seal vanished. Oren closed his tool case. "The examination begins at dawn," he said. It did not sound optional. The Concordat laboratory occupied the stone chambers beneath the arena. Oren placed Gloom inside a ring of lamps and asked me to demonstrate every test I had performed. I explained direction, intent, the single stored attack, and the pain. He did not laugh. He repeated each result with different materials. A falling weight did nothing. A bolt fired without a target bounced from the cloth. The same bolt fired with an order to strike me disappeared. "It recognizes attack intention," Oren said. "It recognizes someone trying to hurt something," Mira corrected. Oren ignored her wording. Lyra Voss arrived carrying a case of fire crystals. She had tied her red hair high and wore a black dueling coat instead of academy blue. Pride entered the room half a step ahead of her. "You requested an Ember Hall specialist," she told Oren. "You got the best one available." "I requested your attack signature," Oren said. "It comes attached to me." Lyra looked at Gloom. The familiar turned its handle away from her. "Still offended?" she asked. "You returned my spear as a dragon. I should be offended." The hook tapped the floor twice. Lyra understood the insult without help. Her goal was not a rematch. The black dragon shape had included a pattern used by the Voss family forge, a spiral of flame paths taught only to their heirs. Her family had built the Academy's old sky wards, but the Concordat had declared their forge unsafe and closed it after her father disappeared. She wanted proof that the same lunar metal beneath the bridge had been used to sabotage those wards. "If the umbrella knew our pattern before it met me, then someone copied the forge," she said. "I will not let the Concordat bury that fact." Oren's mouth tightened. "Your forge was closed because its ribs were made with unidentified metal." Gloom's broken silver rib turned toward Lyra. She stopped speaking. The rib and the clasp on her crystal case carried the same tiny crescent mark. Lyra forgot her pride for a moment. She knelt beside Gloom without touching it. "My father called this sky silver," she said. "He said it fell before our kingdom had a name." Gloom leaned closer. "That was how Lyra entered our problem. Not as a fan of my new rank, and not as someone waiting to be rescued. She had a closed forge to reclaim, a missing father to find, and enough fire knowledge to challenge every lazy guess I made. Her first challenge was immediate. She fired one controlled spear that split into 2 heads just before impact. Gloom swallowed neither. Both struck the protective wall. "One source is not enough," Lyra said. "The attack must still have one committed direction when it reaches the canopy. That dragon joined its paths before it left." "That refinement could save my life." Oren responded by building the exact trap that could kill me. He called it a compliance test. 4 small emitters surrounded the platform. Only one fired at a time, but the order was random. I had to turn Gloom toward each source. For 6 shots we succeeded. On the 7th, 2 emitters fired together. Gloom turned toward the bolt aimed at Mira, who stood outside the ring. I saw the other bolt aimed at Oren's instrument panel. If the panel broke, the examination ended and the Academy might keep Gloom. If Mira's shield failed, she would be hurt. "Panel," I ordered. Gloom opened toward Mira. It swallowed her bolt. The second shattered the instrument panel. Oren's glass restraints rose around us. "Test concluded," he said. "The relic cannot obey tactical direction." "It protected a person," Mira said. "It sacrificed a containment system holding an unknown lunar charge. A guardian that chooses without understanding is a hazard." His argument was rational. That made my anger worse. The Academy Council met that afternoon. Sponsor Vey offered to rebuild the observatory if Gloom was transferred. Oren recommended sealing. Bran wanted Cassian to use it in combat. No one recommended asking Gloom. I had one night to prove it could operate under a rescue plan. Lyra proposed a demonstration in the abandoned forge chamber beneath Ember Hall. The chamber contained a calamity lance, a device her family had built to compress uncontrolled fire into a single beam. If Gloom could swallow the lance and return it through a chosen cooling channel, we would prove precision and help Lyra reopen the forge. Mira opposed the plan. "The last 3 needles left silver marks along Rowan's nerves," she said. "A larger attack may not stop hurting when he releases it." "If we do nothing, Oren seals Gloom," I replied. Gloom hid beneath my chair. I should have listened to that answer. Instead, I lifted it by the handle and carried it to the forge. The chamber was circular, lined with dark brick and old copper pipes. Myra activated the cooling channel. A narrow door opened at the far end, revealing a shaft aimed harmlessly into the mountainside. The calamity lance stood opposite it. Oren had installed a glass collar around Gloom's runner. The collar would force the canopy open when I pressed a remote catch. "For safety," he said. Gloom struck the collar with its hook. "1 shot," I promised, "then no more tests." The handle remained cold. Lyra lit the lance. Fire gathered in a white point. The device groaned. Mira tied a healer's thread around my wrist, but her eyes never left the silver marks creeping beneath my skin. "Stop if it refuses," she said. The lance fired. Gloom locked its runner. I pressed the remote catch. The glass collar forced the umbrella open. For half a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then Gloom swallowed the calamity lance. The canopy slammed shut against the collar. One of its silver ribs cracked. The pain was not heat. It was the memory of heat moving through a body too small to contain it. I lost my grip and hit the floor. Gloom lay beside me, folded and shaking. "Release into the cooling shaft!" Oren shouted. I grabbed the handle and pushed the runner. Gloom refused. The stored fire burned through our bond. Pipes began to glow around the chamber. If we held the lance much longer, the cracked rib might fail. I told myself I was protecting everyone. I told myself objects did not understand urgency. Then I used the collar again. The canopy opened 1 hand's width. Fire leaked through the torn cloth in crooked lines. It struck the cooling pipes instead of the shaft. Copper burst. Steam filled the chamber. A section of the old forge ceiling collapsed, crushing the records Lyra had come to recover. She stared at the burning papers. I had destroyed proof that might have led to her father. Gloom snapped closed and tore the glass collar apart. The cracked rib fell to the floor. The bond went silent. I could still hold the umbrella. I could no longer feel where it looked or what it wanted. It had become exactly what Oren called it, an object in my hand. That silence frightened me more than the pain. Oren ordered the chamber evacuated. Fine silver dust spread through the steam. It was not an attack aimed at anyone. It was a cloud. Gloom could not swallow it. Mira used healing wind to clear a path. Lyra burned the dust above us in small, controlled circles, keeping her fire away from Gloom. I carried the familiar beneath my coat. At the exit, a support beam fell. Gloom did not move. I pulled Mira aside and took the edge of the beam across my back. It drove me to my knees but did not crush me. Lyra cut it with a line of fire. Outside the chamber, Oren held out a sealing case. "The relic is damaged. Give it to me before the stored lance breaches." Gloom still held most of the fire. The leaked portion had caused the collapse. The main attack remained folded inside, burning both of us, even though I could no longer feel its thoughts. I looked at the case. Surrendering might save my place at the academy. It might even be the safest decision. Then I looked at the broken rib on the floor. I had promised 1 shot. Gloom had refused. I had forced it anyway. "No," I said. I set the umbrella down and stepped away from its handle. "What are you doing?" Lyra asked. Giving it the choice I took. The forge wall shook. Oren's sealing case opened. Bands of light flew toward Gloom from 4 directions. They were not attacks, they were restraints, and the umbrella could not eat them. I stepped into their path. The bands wrapped around my arms and chest instead. Oren swore and canceled the seal before it tightened. That was reckless. Yes, I said. So was forcing it to open. I knelt several steps from Gloom. I did not reach for it. The cooling shaft is clear, I said. You can release there. You can release somewhere else. You can leave. I will not touch the runner again unless you ask. The umbrella did nothing. Behind us, the Calamity Lance's cracked core flared. A second charge had built inside it. The weapon turned on its damaged mount, searching for the strongest heat source. It aimed at Lyra. She raised a firewall, but using fire against the lance only made its targeting point brighter. Gloom remained still. I could have grabbed it. I did not. Instead, I ran toward Lyra. The lance fired. I had 8 mana, no shield, and no good plan. I placed myself between Lyra and the beam because that was the choice Gloom had tried to make in the laboratory. Protect the person who could not block the next attack, even if the instrument panel broke. Black cloth filled my vision. Gloom had leaped from the floor. It opened with 1 rib missing and swallowed the new beam. For an instant it held 2 fires, the original stored lance and the second attack. Then I understood what had happened. It had not swallowed a second attack into a second space. It had opened first and released the old lance directly into the oncoming beam. The 2 attacks met along one line. The stronger direction forced the combined fire back into the canopy, and Gloom closed around the result as one calamity. Same rule, terrifying consequence. Pain dropped me to both knees. Gloom's hook curled around my wrist, not as a chain, but as a grip. The bond returned. It was furious with me. It was also afraid for Lyra. Beneath both feelings was a question. Together? Together, I said. The second sealed path opened, devourer of calamities. My mana did not rise. The class did not make the pain disappear. It let me recognize the weight Gloom had accepted before it opened. The stored attack was too large to throw carelessly. It needed a destination that could receive its full direction. Lyra saw me looking at the mountain shaft. The channel will crack, she said. Can you keep it straight? She wiped ash from her face. My fire does not bend unless I tell it to. Mira placed both hands over the silver lines in my arm. I can keep you awake for 1 release. After that, you stop. Oren opened the outer mountain gate. 3 people who did not trust one another chose the same direction. Gloom opened. The combined Calamity Lance erupted through the cooling shaft. Lyra wrapped it in a spiral of her own fire, not adding power, only holding its edges together. Mira kept my hand from closing. The beam crossed the mountainside and struck an empty lunar marker Oren had placed in the sky. The marker shattered. Every hidden white shard beneath the academy went dark. The crisis ended. The price did not. Silver pain remained along my arm, a permanent echo of the calamity Gloom had carried. Mira could soften it. She could not erase it. Gloom's missing rib left one side of the canopy lower than the other. Oren picked up the broken piece. I will not dismantle it, he said. Not today. But someone built those markers to direct lunar attacks here. If the umbrella is a guardian, its enemy knows where it is. Lyra took the rib from his hand. My family can repair Sky Silver. The forge records are gone, but I know one person who may remember the method. Your father? I asked. If he is alive. Gloom tapped her boot once, gently. Before dawn, the blackened observatory opened for the first time in 20 years. A girl stood inside the sealed upper chamber. She had silver hair, bare feet, and a crescent mark glowing at her throat. Moonlight pooled around her like water. She looked at Gloom's broken canopy and covered her mouth with both hands. Aegis, she whispered. Gloom tore itself from my grip and opened toward her. The girl bowed as if greeting an old knight. "You guarded my palace," she said. "How did you fall so far?" The moon girl called the umbrella Aegis Nox. Gloom hated the full name. Whenever she used it, the familiar folded one panel over another, like someone pulling a blanket over his head. When I called it Gloom, the hook tapped my wrist. The girl watched this with the wounded dignity of a princess whose royal guard had chosen a nickname. "Aegis Nox was the first canopy of the Moon Palace," she insisted. Tap. "It stood above the throne through 9 star sieges." Tap. "It did not steal fruit." Gloom hooked an apple from Oren's breakfast tray. The girl's name was Celine Eyre. She claimed to be the last free heir of the Moon Palace, which would have sounded impossible if she had not spent 20 years sealed in an observatory without aging. Her quiet face became fierce whenever Oren suggested she was a relic projection. "Projections do not get hungry," she said. She ate 6 honey rolls to prove it. Celine had not come to reclaim Gloom as property. She wanted the Guardian's help reaching her palace before the Pale Regent completed something called the Descent. The moon we saw was not a dead rock. Part of it was a vast, enclosed realm hidden behind a silver veil. The round palace in Gloom's holes stood at its center. It had fallen 18 years ago. "The Regent turned the palace's defense into a weapon," Celine explained. "Every judgment from the moon must name a target and travel along a royal line. Aegis Nox guarded that line. It could take one judgment into itself and return it to the throne." The rule had been the same in a palace and a practice room. One directed attack, one open canopy, one stored line. "Why did it open every night?" I asked. Celine looked at the blackened observatory roof. "Because the Regent has been testing the line. Your academy sits on the old lower anchor. Each silver needle was a question. Is the Guardian here? Will it answer?" Gloom closed tightly. "And last night it answered," Oren said. No one slept after that. We moved to the observatory's lower map room. Oren spread the recovered moon shards across a stone table. Lyra heated each piece until hidden paths glowed on its surface. Mira compared those paths with the silver scars on her brother's treatment notes. Celine stood inside a ring of dust and traced constellations that did not exist in our sky. They had 3 different goals. Mira wanted to break the falling lines that caused Moonscorch and bring her brother a cure. Lyra wanted to prove the Voss Forge had been sabotaged with lunar metal and find the father who had followed that trail. Celine wanted to stop the descent and reopen a road home. They also had 3 different opinions about Gloom. Mira treated it as a patient who could refuse. Lyra treated it as a proud craft she intended to challenge and repair. Celine treated it as an old protector whose duty had survived longer than its kingdom. Gloom listened to Mira, argued with Lyra, and hid from Celine's formal speeches. I loved all 3 reactions more than I planned to admit. The truth about my first day arrived with sponsor Vey. He entered the observatory under guard, wearing a dark coat and no expression. Cassian came with him. Cinder rode his shoulders, still bound by the gold command collar. Vey did not deny planting the umbrella in the familiar hall. "The Concordat found it 12 years ago," he said. "It did nothing for every high-ranked bearer. It would not open. It broke contracts. It injured 2 researchers who forced the runner. Oren recommended permanent sealing. I recommended a field test." Oren's silence confirmed enough of the story. "You chose me because I was disposable," I said. "I chose you because the relic reacted when you passed its vault," Vey replied. "The ranking crystal showed no mana response. My advisors believed the reaction might be related to weakness." "So you took Cinder." Cassian looked at his father. Vey continued with the calm of a man reading expenses. "You would not accept an unranked object while you possessed a promising familiar. The reassignment created necessity. If the relic activated, we gained information. If it did not, Cinder still moved to a stronger contract." The cruelty had not been random. My public humiliation had been a lever. Bran had known the arena barrier behind me was broken. Vey had wanted a lethal attack aimed at the umbrella while observers watched. Lyra's hands ignited. "You used my fire," she said. "I used a controlled academy assessment. You placed Rowan in front of a broken barrier. The relic opened."
That was his defense. The plan had worked. Cassian reached for Cinder's command collar. His hand shook.
"You told me she chose the contract."
"She will benefit from it." Cinder bit Cassian's thumb. He did not order her to stop. He pressed the release seal. The gold collar fell to the floor. Cinder sprang down, ran past me, and stopped beside Gloom. She touched her nose to the torn black cloth. Gloom opened one panel over her like a tiny roof. Then Cinder looked back at Cassian. He stood alone beside his father. I could have called her to me. I wanted to. Instead, I knelt and held out my hand without a command. Cinder touched my fingers, then returned to Cassian and climbed onto his unguarded shoulder. Her choice hurt less than the stolen contract had. Cassian swallowed. "I will testify about the collar and the barrier." Vey's eyes finally changed. Not fear, calculation. His son had become evidence against him. "Testify tomorrow," he said. "If there is an academy left." He placed a black envelope on the map table. Inside was a lunar forecast purchased from a smuggler. At midnight, the Pale Regent would fire the descent spear at Skyreach. The attack would not be a silver needle. It would be the focused weight of the moon barrier, a single royal judgment large enough to erase the academy anchor and open a permanent gate. Vey had planned to evacuate his son and let the Concordat seal the site afterward. That was rational if one believed Gloom was only a beacon. Celine read the forecast twice. "If the anchor breaks, the Regent's army can descend anywhere beneath this sky." "Can Gloom swallow the spear?" I asked. She looked at the umbrella. "Once it could." Gloom spread its patched, uneven canopy. Moonlight passed through 6 holes. Lyra crossed her arms. "Then we repair it." Her plan required the closed Voss forge, the broken rib, and enough sky silver to join the metal without replacing it. Replacing a rib would change how Gloom guided stored attacks. We could not risk changing the only rule we understood. Orin had sky silver in the Concordat seal bands. He looked unhappy when Lyra pointed that out. "Those restraints cost more than Ember Hall," he said. Gloom held out its broken side. Orin sighed. "I see why dismantling you seemed simpler." He surrendered the bands. The forge remained unstable, so Lyra moved the repair to the Academy bell tower. She built a small flame circle on the stone floor. Her fire did not supply a new power. It softened the broken edges while Gloom decided how they joined. "Do not force the rib," she told me. The words landed where they should. I placed the repaired silver piece beside Gloom and stepped back. The familiar inspected it, poked Lyra's tongs, rejected the first angle, and made her heat the joint again. Lyra argued with an umbrella for 20 minutes. "Your left side is crooked," she said. Clack. "That is not an artistic choice." Clack, clack. "Fine, it is a terrible artistic choice." Gloom accepted the rib. When it opened, all the seams led toward the center again. The 6 holes remained. It refused patches. "It needs them," Mira said. Celine nodded. "They were not damage. They mark the 6 towers of the palace." The physical defect everyone had mocked was a memory. Repair solved the canopy. It did not solve the attack. The descent spear was supposed to strike the entire academy anchor. That target covered half a mountain. Even though the spear came from one source, its final edge would spread across thousands of directions before it touched Gloom. Lyra's split spear test had proved the familiar would fail. We had to make an impossible attack remain one line. Celine found the answer in the royal law behind the weapon. A judgment traveled toward a named person before expanding to their land. If she stood at the Academy's central anchor and revealed her crescent mark, the spear would recognize the last heir. For one heartbeat, all its force would be aimed at her. "No," I said. "It is my palace," she replied. "My enemy, my choice." Mira also said no, but for a different reason. The attack may touch you before the umbrella takes it. We need a healing circle around the anchor. She redesigned the infirmary's largest ward, not to heal Celine after the strike, but to keep her body stable during the fraction of a second when the targeting line fixed on her. Her brother's moon-scorched notes showed which nerves the silver force followed. Lyra planned to burn every smaller fragment from the spear's edge, leaving only the central direction. It required her to stand outside Gloom's canopy, where the falling fire would reach her. "I have the most fire resistance here," she said. "Do not make that face." "What face?" "The one where you invent a worse plan so you can be heroic alone." Mira almost laughed. Orin would rotate the academy barrier, bending the final line toward the bell tower where I could meet it. Cassian volunteered Cinder to ignite the old barrier furnaces. He did not ask me to forgive him. He found work and did it. Vey tried to leave. The headmaster arrested him using Cassian's testimony in the broken arena barrier records. Our human antagonist did not roar or reveal a secret transformation. He requested legal counsel and began planning his defense. It was the most realistic defeat I had ever seen. At sunset, Gloom refused our plan. We placed it at the central anchor. It folded, crawled down the stairs, and hid beneath Mira's medicine cart. Celine followed. "Aegis Nox, your heir commands you to stand." Gloom wrapped its hook around the cart wheel. "Stop commanding it," I said. Celine's face tightened. "My people died because the palace guard chose compassion over orders. It opened the lower gates to civilians. The regent entered among them." Gloom became very still. There was the old conflict inside it. Duty had once been used to punish mercy. Now our plan asked it to put the same heir beneath the same line of judgment. I sat on the floor beside the cart. "I do not want Celine used as bait either," I said. But she chose the risk. Mira chose her circle. Lyra chose the outer line. You get a choice too. If we cannot do this together, we evacuate and find another way to fight later. Gloom touched the silver scars on my wrist. The descent spear would be larger than the calamity lance. While it remained stored, I would feel part of its force. No healer could remove that price without weakening the bond that let me release it. If I lost consciousness before we found a destination, Gloom might carry the spear forever, or break trying. "I am afraid," I admitted. The hook settled over my hand. Celine knelt on my other side. She removed the crescent chain from her throat and laid it before Gloom. "I am not your queen," she said. "I am asking my oldest friend." Gloom released the cartwheel. It chose the bell tower. Night fell. The academy evacuated every student who could not maintain the lower shelters. I wanted to send Mira, Lyra, and Celine with them. They ignored me in 3 different styles. Mira quietly tied me into the healing circle before I could object. Lyra told me my strategy was stupid and improved it. Celine walked to the anchor and dared the moon to recognize her. At 1 minute before midnight, the sky darkened around the moon. The pale regent appeared across its surface as a tall shadow wearing a crown of white points. His voice traveled down the royal line. "Return the first canopy," he said. "The lower world will be spared after surrender." Gloom opened halfway and spat the remains of a stolen apple seed over the tower edge. Lyra grinned. "A formal refusal." The regent raised one hand. The moon became a spear. Light gathered from horizon to horizon and narrowed toward Skyreach. Lesser fragments broke from its edge. Lyra launched a spiral of fire around the descending line, burning those fragments away before they could split the attack. Her boots slid backward across the tower roof, but her spiral held. Orin rotated the barrier. Blue walls leaned like glass in a storm. The spear bent toward the central anchor. Celine uncovered her crescent mark. Every silver line in the sky aimed at her heart. Mira's healing circle rose around her in green rings. The first touch of moonlight entered the circle. Silver marks flashed under Celine's skin, but she remained standing. The attack had become one direction. Gloom leaped into my hands. It opened wider than its ribs allowed. The black cloth tore along every old seam. Instead of breaking apart, the pieces stretched. The repaired rib lengthened. The hook uncurled into a dark staff. One panel became 6, then 12, all connected by threads of moonlit silver. Gloom was transforming by choice. The canopy spread above the bell tower, then above Ember Hall, then above the entire central court. It became a vast, black disk with 6 familiar holes glowing like palace windows. The descent spear struck. Gloom devoured the first edge of moonlight. The canopy pulled inward. Towers shook. Windows burst. The black disk kept drinking the single directed attack as it poured down from the moon. Pain entered me. I had expected fire, cold, or crushing weight. Instead, I felt every place the spear intended to erase. Dormitory beds, classroom desks, the practice room beneath the stairs, the bridge where a baby manta had been trapped. Thousands of possible absences pressed through my body at once. Mira caught me before I fell. "Stay with the direction," she said. Lyra's fire spiral shattered. Oren's barrier controls melted. Celine remained inside the targeting circle, but bloodless moonlight covered her eyes. Gloom kept swallowing. The last of the spear vanished. The enormous canopy snapped shut above the academy. It did not return to umbrella size. A black cocoon hung over the bell tower, holding a moon's judgment inside. Every silver scar on my arm lit at once. The stored pain did not pulse with my heartbeat anymore. It replaced it. I heard Gloom through the bond, far away and terrified. It had taken the impossible target. Now neither of us knew how to open again. The black cocoon above the bell tower began to fall. Gloom's hook had grown into a staff as tall as the tower, and its closed canopy was wide enough to crush the court. Lyra reinforced the tower braces with fire, while Cassian and Cinder lit the old barrier furnaces. Blue light caught the cocoon, but the impact threw me to the floor. Mira kept one hand on my back and the other inside Celine's healing circle. "How long?" I asked. She understood the real question. "Before the stored attack stops your heart? I do not know. Before the silver pain reaches it? Minutes." Comforting. I am a healer, not a liar. Above us, a seam opened 1 finger's width. White light cut the top from a distant statue before Gloom forced the seam closed. It was trying not to hurt anyone. "The first canopy cannot return judgment without a royal destination," his voice said. "Its bearer will break. The guardian will remain closed. Then I will descend through it." Celine went pale. "The canopy is part of the gate. When it stores a royal judgment, it connects both anchors. If it stays closed, the regent can travel down the line inside the attack." Gloom had protected the academy every night to keep that road incomplete. Now a white hand pressed against the canopy from inside. Oren opened his sealing case. "I can cut Rowan's bond and drop the cocoon into the ravine. The stored force will destroy the western slope, but the academy may survive." "And the villages below?" Mira asked. He did not answer. Lyra climbed the braces and traced the repaired rib with fire. "It can open," she called down. "The ribs are not locked. It is holding itself closed." Of course it was. Gloom did not fear opening. It refused to return an attack that might erase the people of the Moon Palace. It would not trade one crowd for another. "We need a target on the moon that is not the palace," I said. Celine gripped the crescent chain at her throat. "The judgment came from the regent's crown, but he sits inside the throne shield. Any attack returned along the royal line will spread through the palace heart first." "Can the line be changed?" "Only by the ruler who named the judgment." The regent's white hand pushed farther through the seam above us. "Or by the heir he failed to kill," Celine added. Her plan required reaching the observatory's upper lens. The lens had once received commands from the Moon Palace. If she placed her crescent chain in its center, she could name a new destination for the stored judgment, the regent's crown alone.
The stairs had collapsed. Silver fragments filled the air, and the observatory lens was burned black. Lyra chose to restore the lens with the Voss fire pattern. Mira chose to connect the broken roofs with healing threads. Celine chose to name the crown, knowing every servant of the regent would learn she was alive. I chose gloom, not the weapon inside it, the frightened, rude umbrella holding itself closed above a school. Cassian stepped beside me. Cinder crouched on his shoulder without a collar. "The east roofs are still connected," he said. "We can carry Celine to the observatory." "My father will say you forced me," Cassian added. "That is why I started keeping records." Cinder sneezed a spark into his hair. We moved. Mira's green threads linked the bell tower, library, Ember Hall, and observatory. Students held them tight from the shelters. Cassian shielded Celine, while Cinder melted fragments on the roofs. Every step drove the stored judgment closer to my heart. "Do not pull the pain away," I called when Mira's thread tightened. "I am pulling you toward tomorrow," she answered. At Ember Hall, a silver fragment turned in the air. The regent opened a pale eye inside one fragment and directed it at Celine. That made it an attack, but gloom was already full. Lyra stepped into the line. She caught the shard between two walls of flame. Instead of blasting it apart, she changed its heat unevenly until it curved past Celine and buried itself in the roof. "Direction can be argued with," she said through clenched teeth. Cold mist burned Lyra's arm, but she kept moving. At the observatory, a black glass door blocked us. Cinder jumped from Cassian's shoulder and pressed her claws against the glass. Her flame was still pale from months of forced training. Cassian knelt beside her. "Your choice," he said. Cinder's fire stayed small, bright, and exact. It traced the Voss mark around the lock, and the door opened. Choice achieved what command had failed to reach. We entered the lens chamber. Above us hung a circle of dark crystal the size of the arena. The center was buried beneath 20 years of soot fused into glass. Lyra climbed the maintenance frame. Her injured arm shook. "Tell me where the original line ran," she said. Celine pointed to 6 dim circles around the lens. They matched Gloom's holes. Lyra lit one circle at a time. Fire traveled between them in the same dragon pattern her spear had taken when Gloom returned it. The black dragon in the arena had not been decoration. It was the remembered root of the Moon Palace defenses. The soot peeled away in 6 curling sheets. Stars appeared through the lens. So did the palace. For the first time, I saw it without Gloom's cloth between us. White towers leaned over a dark crater. Bridges hung broken in empty air. Thousands of lights moved beneath a clear dome. People still lived there. At the center stood the pale regent on a circular throne. His crown had 6 white points. Black chains ran from it into the palace floor. Gloom had been right to refuse. Returning the attack through the palace heart would have killed the people under that dome. Celine removed her crescent chain. The lens opened a narrow slot for it, then rejected the metal with a flash. "The command needs blood of the throne," Orin said. Celine's face went hard. "No, that was the regent's law. The old palace accepted a promise spoken before witnesses." She looked at each of us. "I name the crown that chained my people as the destination of its own judgment. I accept the road this opens back to me. Do you witness?" Lyra placed a scorched hand on the lens frame. "I witness." Mira's green thread tightened around Celine's wrist. "I witness." Cassian bowed. Orin hesitated, then closed his tool case. "I witness." I placed Gloom's old paper ranking tag beside the chain. 0 attack. F rank. Defective canopy. "We both witness," I said. The crescent chain entered the lens. A black line appeared from the observatory to the regent's crown. It avoided the palace heart. It crossed the dome like a needle passing through an open ring. We had a destination. We still had to convince Gloom to use it. I returned to the bell tower alone. The others held the lens and the path. This part belonged to the relationship that had started in a rubbish bin. The Pale Regent's arm had pushed through the cocoon to the elbow. White armor formed around it. He grasped the edge of the canopy from inside and pulled. Gloom tightened every rib. I climbed the barrier support until I could touch the giant wooden staff that had once been a small hooked handle. The moment my fingers closed around it, the stored pain became the whole sky. I saw the descent spear's intended path. I saw the academy erased, the anchor open, and pale soldiers falling through. I also felt Gloom's memory beneath it. A white palace under attack. Citizens at a lower gate. An order to keep the gate closed. Gloom opening above the crowd anyway. The Pale Regent entering through the line of people it had saved. A final strike aimed at Princess Selene. Gloom devouring it and being hurled out of the palace through a broken world gate. Then another sky. Gray buildings. Rain driven sideways by a hurricane. The umbrella spun through streets it did not know, still carrying the direction of its last duty. I saw myself in my first life step from a doorway. The metal tip struck me. Gloom had been the umbrella that killed me, not a copy, not a symbol. The same torn guardian had crossed worlds in the storm. Its stored strike had already been gone, spent opening the rift that carried my soul here. But the bond between us began in that impossible collision. Gloom remembered me falling. That was why it had recoiled from my hand in the familiar hall. That was why it watched falling objects, hated being closed near open sky, and chose me despite my 8 mana. It had not been searching for a master. It had been trying to apologize. "You have terrible timing," I whispered. The huge staff tapped the tower once. "Sorry." I pressed my forehead against the wood. "I am not asking you to obey me. I am not asking you to forgive yourself. Selene named the crown. Lyra opened the line. Mira is holding us here. You decide when we open. I will take the pain with you." The regent pulled harder from inside. Gloom showed me one final fear. If it opened into its full form, it might never shrink again. The familiar I carried under my arm could become a gate fixed between 2 worlds. I thought of its apple theft, its rude tapping, and the way it hid behind my boots. "Then I will bring a very large umbrella stand," I said. The cocoon shook. It was laughing. The third sealed path opened, not because I had gained control, but because we had accepted the same choice. Lord of the Reversed Storm. My 8 mana remained 8. No new spell filled my hands. The class gave a name to the alliance and nothing more. That was enough. Gloom opened. The black cocoon unfolded above Skyreach in 12 enormous panels. Silver ribs swept outward like the wings of a dragon. The wooden staff curved into a tail around the bell tower. 6 holes blazed with images of the Moon Palace towers. The Pale Regent fell out of the opening halfway between worlds. He wore white armor and a crown of burning points. His hand reached for Selene's line. Gloom changed the angle of one rib. The stored descent spear moved. It did not become my attack. It remained the regent's judgment, carrying every measure of force he had aimed at the academy. The black canopy guided that single attack along the chosen royal line. Its light ran across each rib, joined at the center, and took the same great dragon shape we had seen in the arena. This dragon was large enough to circle the moon. Gloom devoured the storm's direction, reversed it, and opened the impossible road back to its source. The dragon of white judgment, wrapped in black seams, climbed through the observatory line. It passed cleanly through the ring Selene had named. It crossed the palace dome without touching a tower. The regent tried to release the crown. The crown was the source. The judgment recognized it. 6 white points shattered. The black chains beneath the Moon Palace broke one after another. Their force pulled the regent backward through the gate. He caught Gloom's canopy with both hands. For a moment, he hung above the academy. "Guardian," he said.
You failed this palace once. Gloom folded one panel sharply against his fingers. The regent lost his grip. He fell upward along his own reversed attack and vanished into the broken throne. The royal line closed. Silence crossed the academy. Then the enormous dragon canopy folded. Each silver rib shortened. The 12 panels became 6, then returned to the familiar torn circle. The staff curled into a wooden hook. Gloom dropped from the sky small enough for me to catch. It weighed almost nothing. One new silver seam ran through the black cloth, connecting the 6 holes into the constellation of the Moon Palace. The system called its status, the first canopy returned. Its attack remained 0. Gloom shook a pile of moon dust onto my head. Its personality had survived the transformation. Mira reached the tower first. She put both hands around my burned cold wrist and checked my pulse before she allowed herself to breathe. "The pain?" she asked. "Still there, smaller." The silver marks would remain. Each time Gloom stored a powerful attack, they would brighten. Mira could ease the aftershock, but neither of us wanted the cost erased. It reminded us that swallowing danger did not make danger harmless. Lyra arrived next and inspected Gloom's repaired rib. "It held," she said. The hook tapped her boot. "Yes, your crooked angle held too. I will record it as a deliberate masterpiece." Gloom opened one panel over her injured arm. Celine came last. The crescent mark at her throat no longer glowed. In the observatory lens, lights were rising across the Moon Palace as people entered the streets. "The crown chains are broken," she said. "The palace is not free, but it can breathe." She bowed to Gloom. This time Gloom did not hide. It touched its ferrule to her forehead. Before dawn, the academy anchor stabilized, the bridge shards went dull, and Mira's brother's moonscorch stopped spreading. A message in the observatory proved Lyra's father was alive inside the Moon Palace. Oren's new report forbade anyone to dismantle, buy, seal, or transfer Gloom. It described the umbrella as a sovereign familiar capable of consent. Sponsor Vey lost his academy seat while the court investigated the forced contracts and broken barrier. Instructor Bran was removed from the familiar hall. Cassian remained at Skyreach under scholarship rules instead of sponsor privilege. He and Cinder had to learn each other from the beginning, which seemed fair. Headmaster Soren offered me a place in the elite combat course. I refused. I used the reward from saving the academy to open a small rescue section for low-ranked students and familiars that had been labeled defective. Our first equipment cabinet contained rope, medicine, 3 training wands, and one sign that read, "Ask before touching the umbrella." Gloom stole the sign. Mira joined as our healer because the section gave her access to every moonscorch report in the kingdom. She still spoke softly. People had learned to listen. Lyra joined as our field specialist on the condition that no one called her an assistant. Her true condition was that we help her reach her father. She repaired Gloom when permitted and argued with it when not. Celine joined because the new silver seam in Gloom's canopy had become a map. The 6 holes pointed toward 6 lower anchors across our world. Each anchor could open a road to one part of the Moon Palace. One of those anchors lay beyond the eastern storm sea. The 3 girls disagreed about who should sit beside me on our first rescue carriage. Mira arrived early and took the seat while no one was looking. Lyra declared that strategy, not romance, had decided it. Celine asked why lower world courtship required so much luggage. Gloom solved the problem by opening inside the carriage and pushing all 3 of us into separate corners. Then rain began leaking through its holes. "You defeated the moon," I told it. "You still cannot stop rain?" The hook struck my ankle. Rain was not an attack. We had established the rule. Beyond the window, the eastern clouds formed a vast spiral. At its center, moonlight shone through a door-shaped gap in the sky. Gloom turned toward it before anyone else noticed. For one moment, fire traced the Voss spiral inside the door-shaped gap in the clouds. Lyra stopped breathing. "Father," she whispered. The fire vanished. A new line burned across our map toward the storm sea. Gloom folded itself, hooked my belt, and pulled toward the carriage door. It had once fallen from that impossible place, crossed my first life, and carried me into my second. Now it was asking whether I would follow it home. I rested my hand on the crooked handle. "Together," I said. Gloom opened toward the storm,